I mean, imagine if I told you that one of the most famous scenes starring Vivien Leigh was more than just a fantastic performance, it was the unbridled expression of her emotions. No one could have predicted how true this iconic scene from the film actually was. What really transpired during this remarkable event will astound you. Stay in as we unveil the terrible reality of the scene that shocked viewers and made them wonder whether it was all staged. When an actor in Hollywood gets the difficult to work with label, it can spell the end for their career. It was true in the golden age of Hollywood, and it is true now. Actress Vivien Leigh, who won an Oscar for her performance in the 1939 classic Gone with the Wind, is proof that parts may continue coming for those with the right kind of talent. Among the most famous actresses of her day, Vivien Leigh is most remembered for her roles in classics like Desire and Gone with the Wind. Despite her notoriety and glitz, she had a troubled life. There was a lady behind the stunning good looks and brilliant skill who struggled with mental illness, physical health issues, and personal tragedies that affected her life both in and out of the spotlight. Leigh began her meteoric climb to stardom in the 1930s, when she appeared in both theater and cinema roles. She broke success in 1939 with the character of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, which won her the Oscar for Best Actress. While producer David O. Selznick was in the midst of a hectic night shoot with flames and stunts, she visited him on his studio lot. It looked like the ideal debut for the feisty young actress. She was formally cast in her ideal part shortly after. Gone with the Wind featured Scarlett O'Hara as the lead role. Although it has received negative reviews in recent years, the picture is still the highest-grossing film of all time and is primarily responsible for how people remember Vivien Leigh. She became one of the biggest stars of her generation after that pivotal point in her career. Her performance as Blanche Dubois in Desire, a streetcar named Blanche, which she portrayed many years later, reflected her personal battles with mental illness, and it brought her another Academy Award. Additionally, her 1963 performance in the musical Tabarrok earned her a Tony Award. In honor of her incomparable impact on film, the American Film Institute named her one of the all-time great female screen legends. Still, Leigh's private struggles were a major factor even when she was at the pinnacle of her fame. While shooting a Yank in Oxford in 1938, her bipolar disorder became apparent for the first time. No one in her office realized the pain she was in because of her erratic moods and actions, so they labeled her as tough. Co-workers on the Gone with the Wind production were irritated by her psychotic bouts. Her condition deteriorated due to long hours of filming, and she turned to sedatives for relief. The fact that Leigh overdosed on her medicine while filming is indicative of how serious her problems are. The effects of her mental health issues on her professional life persisted. Leigh suffered a nervous breakdown in 1953 while filming Elephant Walk and was administered with a sedative to help her calm down. A humiliating defeat for a star of her ilk, Elizabeth Taylor eventually succeeded her. Her colleagues and friends thought her conduct was uncouth, but it was a tragic representation of her powerless disease. Even her last picture, Ship of Fools, was a difficult era in her life. While filming, Leigh battled paranoia and had several altercations with her co-stars. The fact that the film did well despite her problems is evidence of her extraordinary talent, which she displayed even as her private life fell apart. Leigh suffered tremendous bodily and emotional agony in addition to her struggles with mental health. Miscarriages plagued her throughout her marriage to Laurence Olivier, an actor. Their relationship was already strained before her sadness and disappointment hit. In addition, Leigh was struck down with tuberculosis in the mid-1940s, a debilitating chronic disease that only added to his misery. She lived through a whirlwind of fame-related demands, stigmatized mental illness, and deteriorating health. Nevertheless, Leigh persisted in dazzling audiences with her unfiltered skill and charisma on stage and in film. Imagine if we told you about Vivien Leigh's most famous scene that had nothing to do with acting. Do you think it's true? There are few actresses as adored and esteemed as Vivien Leigh, even though her filmography may appear modest when contrasted with other Hollywood legends of the era. Leigh, who was stunning, brilliant, and resolute, braved all odds by leaving the safety of the London stage to pursue her dream role in Hollywood. Hollywood heavy hitters had been vying for the part she wanted for years, and she was still widely considered inexperienced despite her little filmography. But Leigh had a feeling the part would end up with her. Released in September 1951 was a streetcar called Desire. And viewers were both enthralled and shocked. The movie changed Hollywood forever, thanks in large part to Marlon Brando's groundbreaking method acting and the film's intricate plot. The film's influence, meanwhile, extended well beyond the entertainment sector. star Vivien Leigh was profoundly impacted in ways that none could have predicted. With her portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, Leigh had already captured the hearts of audiences around the world. She had tremendous success as Blanche Dubois on the London stage before being cast to perform the role in the film adaptation. But behind the scenes, Leigh was fighting her own issues, and playing Blanche was a tragedy in and of itself. Leigh gave an absolutely fantastic performance as the multi-layered Blanche Dubois. After losing her husband, her fortune, and her sanity, Blanche is a devastated lady in the film. In search of comfort from Stella and Stanley, her brother-in-law and sister, she travels to New Orleans. Blanche falls into a deeper pit of depression and her mental health worsens throughout the film. As Stanley belittles her frailty, she spirals farther into insanity, and it breaks my heart to see. Leigh was so engrossed in the part that she let her personal problems intersect with Blanche's as she poured herself into playing the disturbed character. Makeup, clothing, and, most unsettling of all, her mental state allowed her to change herself into the tragic, tortured woman she played. Leigh had her moments of discomfort with Brando's method acting. "You have to mean what you say," she said once. "What should be life for me is acting, and it is." Even if she had reservations, she took the director's suggestion and tried to embody Blanche to the letter. "Not only did I have to take on the character's look and accent, but I also had to feel what they felt." The emotional toll of playing such a complicated character caused Leigh to withdraw from the cast and crew on production. She was urged by director Elia Kazan to immerse herself further in Blanche's universe and comprehend the character's instability. He had no idea how serious Leigh's mental health issues were. She displayed unpredictable conduct on occasion. Ebb and flow, experiencing both bursts of vigor and total weariness. She may have had a little talent, but Kazan lauded her for her dogged pursuit of excellence. But Leigh's actions weren't the only ones that changed. Even her private life took a hit. As the boundary between herself and her character grew more porous, playing such a psychologically sensitive role started to strain her marriage to Laurence Olivier. When Blanche, in the midst of a total mental collapse, steps into the light as if trying to regain her sanity, only to face her own demons, it is one of the most disturbing images in the film. It was more than simply acting in this excruciatingly painful sequence. Parts of Leigh's own damaged thinking were resurfacing at that same moment. Her face betrayed her true feelings of desperation and raw emotion. It was a woman's unraveling mental health that no one thought they were seeing. Blanche was more than a character in Leigh's performance, the audience got a taste of her spirit. Even though her voyage with Blanche ended with the film, the impacts continued to reverberate for quite some time. As a terrible byproduct of her dedication to the part, Leigh's mental health and personal life were permanently affected by the blurring line between her character and reality. The turning point in Vivien Leigh's life came with her performance in A Streetcar Named Desire, which is now considered one of the most compelling and eerie films of all time. Those were only the beginning of the problems Leigh encountered throughout production. Laurence Olivier was waiting for her when filming ended, but by the time she got home, their relationship had changed forever. While they had already encountered difficulties throughout their tour and stage production of Streetcar, she posed a distinct challenge. She was haunted by the profound emotional and psychological toll that playing Blanche had taken on her. In an effort to re-establish their connection, Olivier and Leigh undertook a lengthy transatlantic journey. However, the increasing distance between them was impossible to overcome, regardless of their best efforts. Despite their best intentions, the trip served only to emphasize how far apart they had grown. Their distance has never been wider. Their marital status became even more precarious as Leigh's mental health declined. She was finding it more and more challenging to control her bipolar disorder symptoms. She had terrible insomnia and could only sleep for short periods of time, yet she always felt revitalized when she woke up. However, this energy would frequently experience extreme ebbs and flows, a never-ending cycle of mania and sadness. Marlon Brando, who co-starred with Leigh in Streetcar, claims that towards the end of the film, Leigh started to mentally disintegrate and physically fray. Unpredictably, Leigh had been devastated by the strain of portraying Blanche, a lady teetering on the brink of madness. Another tragic turn occurred in Leigh's mental state in 1953, while filming Elephant Walk. She had a nervous breakdown and was sent back to England in a hurry since her condition had deteriorated to a critical level. For Leigh, it was a low point. While facing the double whammy of her mental illness and the crushing truth that her professional and personal lives were collapsing around her, the distance between Leigh and Olivier increased as her health deteriorated. Their united union had grown weak and troubled in recent years. After they broke up, Leigh sought solace in Peter Finch, an actor who had more experience dealing with her illness. Her mental health was still unstable, and not even this connection could help. As Leigh's severe emotional discomfort and erratic mood swings got worse, their relationship started to deteriorate. One of the most famous marriages in Hollywood ended in 1960 when Leigh and Olivier filed for a divorce. Still, they kept working together on different projects even after they were apart. After their divorce, they continued to work together in films, which produced some of Olivier's finest performances. The underlying animosity between them, however, was irreparable. As time went on, Leigh's life grew increasingly bleak. The psychological wounds from her past were insurmountable, and her mental health persisted in deteriorating. Though she subsequently admitted it, Blanche Dubois pushed me over the edge, Leigh, reflecting on her time performing the part. The mental and emotional toll of being a mad woman had seeped into her everyday life, and she had become engrossed in the persona she had painstakingly crafted. Many more years of anguish and sorrow befell Leigh after that. The more her symptoms became unexpected, the more her relationship with Peter Finch deteriorated. She was ensnared in an endless loop of emotionally agonizing ups and downs. Her life had devolved into a terrible mirror image of the figure she had once embodied on film with such intensity. For the last several years of her life, she fought not just her mental illness but also the demons from her past. But her immense talent and adoration for the role of actress never wavered. Despite devoting herself fully to her work, she ended up losing touch with who she was. Not only will A Streetcar Named Desire be remembered for Vivien Leigh's outstanding performance as Blanche Dubois, but also for the personal sacrifices she undertook to give life to the role, the film will always be associated with her. It was an iconic performance, but how did the actress who played the part feel about it? Vivien Leigh's mental health took a turn for the worse in the 1950s, when she was dealing with a serious case of bipolar disorder. The only treatment that could alleviate her intolerable situation was electroshock therapy. This was a really terrible and agonizing period for Leigh. Compared to modern electroshock therapy, the experience of the 1950s was drastically different. There was a lot of pain and anguish from the operation because it was not as polished. The method of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, was far less developed and risky when Leigh had it done. In electroshock therapy, the goal was to reset the brain's function by sending electric currents into the brain. The medication was prescribed to alleviate her sadness, but unfortunately, it caused severe pain, memory loss, and other adverse consequences. It was a physically and emotionally taxing experience for Leigh. Although the therapy did not provide the much-needed relief, it remained her sole choice. During a period when mental health therapies were scarce, Leigh was forced to endure this intrusive and agonizing surgery. The physical toll of the repeated shock treatments was obvious, but it was also evident that the treatment exacerbated her precarious mental health. It was said that she experienced tremendous anxiety prior to each treatment, anticipating the subsequent pain and discomfort. Patients undergoing shock treatments often reported feeling disoriented, fatigued, and puzzled. Leigh probably carried the memories of these sessions with him for a long time after they ended. She felt even more estranged from herself as a result of the therapy's adverse effects, which only made her mental health problems worse. According to one close friend, that must have been incredibly terrifying for her, and it's simple to see why. The emotional and physical pain she endured was unbearable, particularly for someone who was already dealing with so much. The fact that Leigh had previously had so much emotional suffering, along with her shock, made this moment even more difficult for her. She was already emotionally and mentally exhausted after her Hollywood career, her marriage to Laurence Olivier's dissolution, and her portrayal of the tragic Blanche Dubois in Desire, A Streetcar Named Desire. Electroshock treatment was the most recent tragic event in an extensive chain of unfortunate events. Vivien Leigh never got over the traumatic memories of the treatments, since they contributed to her continuous struggle with mental health. The shock treatment's toll on her body and psyche highlights the era's lack of knowledge regarding mental health treatment. She endured immense pain throughout that time, and it affected her health to this day. The long battle with tuberculosis and mental illness finally took its toll on Vivien Leigh on July 8, 1967, when she was 53 years old. Both her extraordinary talent and the perseverance she's shown in the face of adversity make Leigh an inspiration to many. The hardships she endured were misunderstood. Laurence Olivier, who was Leigh's ex-husband and the subject of Terry Coleman's biography of him published in 2006, said that Leigh's anger began while she was filming Gone with the Wind. Coleman said that Leigh was a pain to deal with due to her nervousness and frequent absences from set. While filming, he also revealed that she had overdosed. However, Leigh's co-star Olivia de Havilland denied the accusation and supported her, stating that Vivien was, in fact, quite professional and worked very hard to complete her tasks. According to de Havilland, Leigh was most worried about doing well and being apart from Laurence Olivier, her husband. So that she could spend weekends with him, she put in a lot of time at the office. Leigh is really committed to her job. Her resilience in the face of adversity is a testament to her character. She persevered in the face of adversity, overcoming obstacles such as tuberculosis and bipolar disease to achieve greatness. Her story is an inspiration because it shows that with hard work and patience, one can overcome adversity and achieve their dreams. Leigh is an inspiration to people all across the world since she was an actress who triumphed over tremendous personal obstacles. Her unwavering dedication to her work, despite her struggles with both mental and physical health, is an inspiring testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Both her remarkable acting and the bravery she displayed in confronting her own issues are what leave a lasting impression on audiences. Even though Vivien Leigh endured unfathomable suffering, she is regarded as one of the most legendary Hollywood actors, and her work has inspired many.